This case right here is filled with magic props that are worth over £2,000. Whereas this dinky little pouch right here is filled with props that are worth about £100. Both of these I have used as my repertoire at professional gigs and performances. So the question is, why are they so different and which one is better? Today, we're talking about repertoires. First things first, let's start off with the big boy. This is massive, a huge metal box, a metal case, like James Bond style, filled to the brim with magic tricks. It weighs in, if I put it on the scales, at well over 4,000 grams. This thing is 4 kilograms of magic, and at the moment, it is something that I regularly take to my professional gigs. This is the thing that I am favouring at the moment, and I'm going to dive into exactly why in just a second. But first of all, the features of this case. It is a brilliant carrying case. I think originally it was designed for like makeup artists. I think it's a makeup case, but it just works so well with magic, all the different compartments and everything. It opens up in such a like satisfying gadget case style, and it's got these straps that go with it. It's just great. Now, yes, it is big. Yes, it is heavy. Taking this to every single gig isn't the most practical thing in the world sometimes, but the amount of stuff you can get in here certainly makes it worth it. And I think the actual case itself was about £40, if I remember correctly. So, you know, it's not too ridiculous. It's certainly not into the hundreds or anything like that. So that's the big kit. What about our dinky little friend right here? This one weighs in almost exactly 400 grams. So it's like 10 times lighter. This is what we're dealing with. And I'll rattle through quickly what is inside here, just as an example, although this really varies from gig to gig. We've got a post-it note pad, got a couple of Sharpies, an invisible ink pen, we've got a deck of cards, another deck of cards that does something slightly different, a padlock, which is quite an interesting prop to use, and Lux by Lloyd Barnes. Last thing is just the spare Sharpie. So all in all, not much, right? I could arrive to a gig, pack this into my pockets, and boom, I'm set, right? There's almost no need for the pouch. I can just take this in my pockets and I'm good to go. So this is clearly very stripped back, very minimal, and you might think that it's for a smaller gig, but that is a misconception. Personally, a pouch like this is for a bigger gig, and the big case is for a smaller gig. Now, like I say, there are some magicians out there who will not vary the size of their repertoire. They will just have their case with their props in it and they will take that to every single gig. And I know magicians who do that and have been doing that for the last 20 years. And it works for them. I'm not here to try and change their mind. If you have a one-size-fits-all repertoire, then you absolutely go for it. But for me personally, I like to vary it in size. And personally, for me, the general rule of thumb tip I go by is the bigger the gig, the smaller the repertoire. This right here would happily last me for 2 hours at a corporate event with 300 people. I could go from table to table using just the stuff in this pouch and perform what I would consider to be a good set for those people. Now, some of you might be sitting there and thinking that this is a little bit backwards. How come a smaller repertoire is for a bigger gig? Well, let's think about it logically here. Let's imagine 2 different gigs. One gig, like I said, is for 300 people doing 2 hours of magic. And the other gig is for 30 people also doing 2 hours of magic. We'll keep the numbers pretty simple. Now, if I wanted to perform for 300 people for 2 hours, it's unlikely that those 300 people are going to see me perform more than twice, right? Because the way that's pretty much going to work is I'm going to be going from group to group, from table to table, performing my magic. And so if they're all only seeing me maybe once or twice in the evening, a little bit of entertainment here and there, then I can do the same tricks, the same routines to each group. So I can perform to one group or one table, and then I can move on to the next table and do the exact same routines again. And then I can move on to the next table and do the exact same routines again. I can just replicate what I'm doing, so each table gets the same magical experience. They get the same show from the magician. Now, when I say exact same, I'm talking purely about the tricks, the absolute bare bones. Obviously, the performance and everything like that is completely different every time you do it. That kind of goes without saying. But today, we're being materialistic. We're talking about props. So the props and the tricks are going to be the exact same each time, which means that I can last for hours doing hardly any tricks. Really, in terms of variety, I can get away with hardly any variety for that entire gig. Now moving on to the gig with just 30 people. Now, 30 people, 2 hours of magic, you're gonna need a lot more tricks because the chances are they are going to see you a lot more, okay? In terms of percent, you make up a bigger percent of the event if you're there for just 30 people. And so you're gonna need a variety. You're gonna need a lot of props. You're gonna need something like this to last you for that entire time. Now, okay, just hold on a second, let's clear everything off the table because I need to address the elephant in the room. Some of you are watching this video and thinking, oh, Cavan, what, you need a lot of props to do a lot of magic? What's that about? Surely a deck of cards and you should be able to do 2 hours of magic. And yes, I could, right? If you gave me a deck of cards, I could improv and jazz my way through a gig, okay? Even if I had no props, I could probably make it through doing propless mentalism or whatever. I have enough material to last me. But do I want to be scraping the barrel for tricks? Do I want to be improvising and jazzing my way through? Or do I in fact want to be delivering the best, most varied performance that they will see? Do I want to bring my absolute A-game material, my top 1% of magic knowledge to them to give them the most magical experience? Well, yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. And so when I talk about bringing a repertoire of this size to a gig, it's not that I need all of these props to do the tricks. I am not a prop-based magician. Not everything in here is self-working, right? It's not the props doing the magic. At the end of the day, it is me doing the performance. But the reason I have so many props is to give my audience the best experience possible. To give myself the most number of options possible. So while I could theoretically get through the 30-person gig with a limited number of props, I don't want to do that. There's no point me doing that. I may as well use the interesting, varied stuff that is in here. And look, I'll be perfectly honest, a few months ago, I really went through a phase of wanting to be a minimalist magician. It became a sort of obsession of mine to be able to pack an entire repertoire into something like this. For me, it was just, I don't know, so satisfying, so nice to be able to pack everything into such a small little carry and just have stuff in my pockets, pack super, super light to a gig and be able to amaze people. And it was a fun little challenge, don't get me wrong, it is a fun challenge. I urge you to try and see if you can fit a repertoire into a little pouch like this. But after doing it for a few gigs, it got me thinking that my sort of arbitrary mission of fitting a repertoire into one of these was actually hindering my audience's experience of the magic. Audiences were getting a lesser experience of my magic because of my pointless goal to try and fit it all in here. Now, yes, it was super satisfying and super nice for me to pack light and fit it into something like this, but at the end of the day, who am I packing my magic for? Am I packing it for me or am I packing it for my audience? Well, obviously, it's my audience. Everything I perform, everything I do is for my audience. And so if I'm stopping them enjoying the magic just because I want less things in my pocket, that is completely backwards, and so I stopped doing it altogether. I am no longer a minimalist magician, nor do I try to be, because it doesn't help at the end of the day. However, you would be right in saying that there's a middle ground here between the big, heavy 4-kilogram case and the tiny little 400-gram pouch. There's a middle ground, and I'm sure that you are probably somewhere in between this scale. This seems overkill, and this definitely seems underkill. And believe me, for most of my magic career, 90% of my magic career, I've used something in between this. A camera bag or a little sort of case thing that I use. I've done it, believe me. But the reason I'm now starting to lean back towards using a bigger case, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is to give myself more options. There is more stuff in here that I could potentially perform, And I quite like having that stuff with me. Even if it doesn't get used at every single gig, even if there's something in here that I'm using, I don't know, like 10% of my gigs, the fact that it's in here gives me the option to use it at those 10% of gigs. The real question is there stuff in here that I've never performed? And it pains me to answer this question, it really, really does, but yes, there is. There is stuff in this big case that I haven't got around to performing. And that pains me, right? Because it's taking up space, it's taking up weight. There are tricks in there that I have mastered in practice and mastered on my own, and I now just need to take it and perform it in front of an audience. It's at that phase in the creative process. It's in that phase of the process of performing a magic trick where I have it down in practice, in isolation. I just need to sort of get the bravery and get the courage to actually show it to an audience. And yes, it might go wrong. Yes, it might fail, but you have to get over that hurdle at some point, and so those tricks are in here. Having the bigger case, therefore, has allowed me to be a little bit more experimental. There are things in here that I simply would never think about performing, and those things might go on to be my new best trick, the trick that gets the best reactions. But if I was packing light, I never would have brought it, and I never would have found out that it would be the best trick ever. So you've got to try new things in front of audiences. I'm always about that. This case kind of forces me to do that because I've brought the thing to the gig, so there's really no excuse for me now. I've just got to do it. So there we have it for this video, a little discussion on repertoires. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below on your way out. That is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel and you're a magician or you want to be a magician, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We do anything and everything to do with magic on this channel. And one last thing before I finish the video, we have a brand new service dropping on May the 1st over at cvn.cards. That is right, I said service, not product. This is a service where you can become a court card. We are offering for the first time ever to the public professionally designed, fully customized court cards. All you have to do is purchase the product, then send a picture of your face to the email address provided, and our professional designer, Harris Arya, will make you into a Jack, Queen or King of your choice. This is just every magician's dream. It is perfect for profile pictures and logos and your website, and you even get the digital files if you want to then print it as a card in a custom deck or whatever. You can make this dream a reality starting from May the 1st, and we're honestly not sure how many of these spaces will be available. It might be super limited depending on popularity, so don't miss out. Bag your spot on May the 1st over at cvn.cards. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.